Well, yesterday you had some questions on how the course content is going to be, what the course duration is. So today I'll be talking a little bit about it, and then we'll get started. And yeah, let me start with that. So basically, this will contain primarily four modules: Python, Ansible, Git, REST APIs, and these topics which we'll just briefly browse through because we have limited time. So we'll just briefly talk about the other topics which you can explore further. Of course, CCNA level, you will not be expected to know a lot of these things, right? But these things are important. Mute is off. Yes, that is done purposefully so that accidentally people do not unmute them, which will disturb others. So you keep leaving the messages in between. Once in a while, I'll keep taking look at the chat and then address the questions whenever we want to take a break. Yes, please, you can ask me. What's the question regarding course content? Okay, yeah, by the way, I'm not yet done, so let me unmuting, we can do it later. So, I mean, you can ask that questions like what is your question? Because if I unmute you, it's like, yeah, there'll be a lot of requests, right, to unmute. Yes, you'll be getting course videos, whatever we are recording. I mean, these are general questions. I hope you're asking in the WhatsApp group. We'll also be compiling FAQs and publishing on the WhatsApp group so that we don't, I mean, these get addressed for everyone and we do not end up discussing these things again and again, right? So you'll get videos, you'll get the slides, you'll get hands-on exercises, you'll get lab environment, right? So you'll get all that is required for you to practice. Well, I mean, we are talking about CCNA, so let's keep the questions relevant. Yeah, this is not the forum to ask about when will we start CCA security, right? We are talking about CCNA DevNet Associate. Well, CCDA, this course is designed such a way that you gain confidence, it will help you to get started on, right? You are not exactly targeting the exam, right? After this course, you'll have to have a lot of self-study. You'll have to go through a lot of reference material. You'll have to do a lot of practice, right? So we have not exactly taken the blueprint and then designed this course. We have taken blueprint as a reference, and in general, these are the topics which people find difficult to understand. Of course, not everyone, but majority of the network engineers are not very comfortable working with Python, Ansible, Git, which is something totally new for them, and REST APIs. So that's how we decided to focus on these primary areas and just introduce the other topics. Okay. So if you're exactly talking about the blueprint, weightages, 15%, 20%, etc., it's like, yeah, we can take the blueprint and then use this class. That's why we call this as a boot camp, right? Boot camp helps you to get started off. This is not, by no means we are claiming that this is going to be sufficient for you to clear the exam. This will give you the confidence and show you what is going to be there in the, of course, you know, like what will be there in the exam as part of the blueprint. This will help you to boost your confidence by addressing the major blocks.
Recording in progress.
Okay, as part of Python, we'll be discussing these things, getting started with the fundamentals of the programming language. And these are all like in programming, these are like pretty standard stuff. We'll be discussing about something known as identifiers, variables, data types, data structures, etc., etc. At this point of time, this might not be very interesting or exciting to you, but yes, we'll be addressing it. And Ansible is a configuration management automation tool. So we'll be getting into a fairly decent depth into it. Git is a software version control system. Why is it required? How to work with it? We'll be seeing it briefly. And then we'll delve a little bit into APIs. What are APIs, first of all? How Cisco exposes their APIs and how we can use APIs to get some of the automation done. These are going to be the primary focus of this. I saw someone posted a specific DevNet exam topic, and are these going to be? Not all, because of the bootcamp time is limited, but in that the major topics is what we are addressing, right? And being network guys, like the other things like Cisco related networking stuff that you can prepare on your own. Things which are new to you is what I'll be teaching as part of this. And the total duration, by the way, is 30 hours. So assuming that we'll be having class on the weekdays, so it is like 15 working days, which is like typically 3 weeks. So if it be we can take it that 3 weeks is the duration of this bootcamp. And I'm working on testing I created a VM with all the things which are set up. I just need to test it. Once it's tested, I'll upload it somewhere on my Drive location and share the link probably tomorrow so that you can download it. And then I'll help you to, we can just import it into any of the virtual workstation, but I'll help you to walk you through how to find your way around once you get VM. Okay. Now, meanwhile, if you want to get started, Python can be downloaded from here. What do you mean by lab preparation? Within the limited amount of time, whatever we have, I'm not sure if the primary objective of this bootcamp has already been set. If it's not been set, if the expectation has not already been set, I'll ask my team to set the expectation correctly, right? We are talking about bootcamp here, so we'll not be obviously have time to get you prepared for the lab, right? Lab is quite intensive. Lab requires a lot of things. By lab, if you mean hands-on, yes, you'll get a lot of hands-on. Everything that we'll be doing will be hands-on, but on the topics that I've shown you. Hope that addresses your concern. Okay, we can download Python from here. If you're on Windows, it's just an executable. You can just double click it, go through the installation wizard, next. You're all set. Now, how you can check, once you install, how you can check whether it is properly installed is open your command prompt and say type Python -- version. If you see the version number, then we are good. And if it's not already installed, we'll get some error saying command Python is not known. So you can download it, install it, and then test it out with this simple command, Python version. And let me post this also in the chat. The other thing that we'll be actively using is Visual Studio Code. Right? This can be downloaded from this link. Okay, these versions keep changing. You might see I have 3.10, whereas 3.11 is latest, but that is okay, right? These are all 3 is the major release, 10, 11. These are all minor releases. So there'll be few things which are extra in this, but that really doesn't affect our learning experience with this. So you can download it. It's just executable, about 24 MB in size. Right, I already have it installed, so I'll not do it again. And as you can see, it's an executable. You can just double click it. Of course, if you have it for all other operating systems as well, Linux and Mac, etc. So depending on what it is, you can follow the instructions for that specific OS and install it. Once you have it installed, you can do this, right? Python version, and then you have. The IDE, Integrated Development Environment, that we'll be using is Visual Studio Code, which can be downloaded from this link. Again, you will have for different various operating systems. And that's also quite simple. Installing it is quite simple. And you will have something like this. Right? Once you install, you will have a place where you can create your files and your main working area. Right? Now, Python supports multiple ways of working with things. I'll just show you some of them. First thing is CLI, Command Line Interface, or also known as Python Interpreter. So at the command prompt, if I simply type Python, after Python has been installed, if I simply type Python, I'll get this kind of prompt. This is Python prompt. We get some information, which is your version, how to seek help, etc., etc. And then the prompt changes to these 3 greater than symbols. Now you are at the Python prompt, which means you can start giving Python commands. The first, like let's say you're learning something, any new thing, first thing that you would do is, okay, how to show something. Like in Linux shell scripting, you have echo command. Right? You just test it out. You say echo hello world or something, it echoes it back to you. Same way, in Python, we have something known as print command. Right? We say print. It just prints back to you, prints this same thing back to you. Right? So these are known as built-in functions. Right? We will be seeing what are these, but this is you can think of this as it is somewhat similar to your echo. Now you know that. So I'm just showing you. We can start issuing Python commands, and this will do command by command execution. Right? And the other way you can work is in your favorite editor. right? This is a editor of our choice. We can use any editor for that matter. Someone asked me why specifically Visual Studio Code. There is no specific reason. You can use a simple notepad as well if you find comfortable working with it. And you can put your Python code here, save it as .py, and go to your command prompt and execute from there. But Visual Studio Code will make your life a little simple. Right? I think yesterday I mentioned that you can write code here, execute straight out of it without leaving this IDE. You can do everything from inside the IDE. That's why we call this as IDE, Integrated Development Environment. And that is one of the good enough reasons for you to choose this. Now, in this IDE, I'm inside my work folder. Inside that, I've created a few folders. Like these are like folders, right? You can create files or folders. I can create folders like this. Inside this folder, I can create files. I've created a folder. I'll say I create a new file. This is my first Python program, so I'll call it as first.py. So this is second way of writing your code. One way is you have your commands. You go to the prompt. You keep giving commands. Right? It takes one command, immediately it shows the result. You type the second command, it shows the result. Just like how you would interact with any Cisco router or a switch or any network device. Right? But the other way is put all your commands, because if you are giving one command one by one, you might lose the track of the overall objective that you that you're trying to, the problem that you're trying to solve or the task that you're trying to automate. Right? So in such cases, what we do is like we switch into something known as script mode. And this is known as script mode. We create a file with a specific extension .py. We start writing our commands here. For now, I limit myself to just whatever command we have already seen. Right? The same print command. Right? Now, how do we execute this? Right? Execution, I can go to my terminal. I'll switch to this directory and then execute. Now the terminal comes to me. Right? Either I can go to the terminal. Because of the power of Visual Studio, terminal comes to me. They have integrated this terminal also. So I'll simply click here, or I'll go to this option called as terminal in my menu options and say start new terminal. So I have my terminal open and I'm inside my work directory. So I'll switch to this subdirectory, cd to ls. I have my program here. Now I have written my code, saved it in this file. Now I need to execute it. I'll say Python. Python is the executor. I'm calling the executor and then saying what to execute. Python first.py. It takes this code, goes inside, sees these commands, it executes them, and prints the result here. If there is something to be printed, or if there is nothing to be printed, or just does some task, it will do that. Okay, these are two ways you can execute your Python code. Now there is another way known as interactive Python, which is catching up nowadays. If you have your Google account, right? All of you must be having. You can go to something known as colab.research.com. There's a concept called as there's a company, there is a third open source tool called as Jupyter, right? Jupyter guys have come up with a new concept called as notebooks, right? To write interactive code. So what you are looking at is the a sample notebook. If you see the extension, it says untitled 0, the file which I created, it's not yet been named, but the extension is IPYNB. It stands for Interactive Python Notebook. I stands for Interactive, PY for Python, NB for Notebook. Right? So this is another way you can work with Python in an interactive mode. Now, why we call this as notebook? Because it consists of something known as cells. What you are looking at is a cell. Here I can give the same Python command. To execute this cell, because this is I'm writing code here, it is known as code cell. There is another type of cell which is known as text cell, right? So to execute this, obviously you can execute code cell and not a text cell. Text cell is meant for adding some comments, putting some information, additional information, etc. along with this. I'll show you what is a text cell, but this is a code cell. The code cell can be executed by clicking this play button. You click this. Obviously, since I'm writing code here, it has to go and get executed on a server, right? The Google guys have provided one server, which is linked to my account. So I got connected to that server. The Python code which I have written goes and gets executed on the server. I get my output. Okay? This is code cell. Now I'll create text cell. I can move around cells. I can take this up. And here I'll say, I'll put my comments. This is notebook style of working with Python. And it looks like this. So this is a text cell, this is a code cell. You can clearly differentiate between them. And this obviously cannot be executed. You cannot execute it. You cannot run it. This is just meant for information, providing information purpose. How this is helpful is you can keep your code as well as the help text or documentation together. And this is also becoming very popular. So sometimes you'll see people talking about Jupyter notebooks. Right? If you hear the term Jupyter notebook, you can remember this. Right? Now, these Google guys have taken this idea of Jupyter notebook to another level, and they borrowed that same idea and called it as collaborative workspace, where each of us will get our own environment on the Google servers. But Jupyter notebooks also exactly look like this. This is just for additional information. It is just to show you that yes, you have different ways of working with Python. But we will be sticking mostly to writing scripts. We'll come back to our IDE, Integrated Development Environment, and start writing code here. Okay. So that was an introduction. Let me take that. I can do yesterday's recording that will be shared with you shortly. Use single quote, double quote. We'll get into those details. The machine is not yet installed. Please install fast. I'm getting same error. Okay, it's related to that. For Python IDE, PyCharm is okay. Yes, it is very much okay. Can we get recording for today's session? Yes, you'll be getting. Can I live with PyCharm? Yes, you can very much live with PyCharm if you're comfortable with it. See, ultimate goal is writing code and execute it. It doesn't matter. Some people are comfortable doing it out of Notepad++ itself. Right? So it really doesn't matter. Today's recording will come. It is on the way. It will come to you shortly. But one humble request, guys, do not see, the problem is once we say yes, we'll be providing you the recording, the seriousness goes, right? Okay, we'll get the recording, we'll see when we get the recording. So I request you, please do not rely on recordings. Please, I know, of course, you all have your restrictions. Probably you're working, probably you have taken time out of your these things and that to join this camp. But to a large extent possible, whatever extent possible, be part of this session and try to rely on this. Okay, I can. Yeah, that's what I can understand. We all have our restrictions. Yes, that's the reason we give the recordings. But at the same time, I don't want you to totally rely on recordings. That's my humble request. That's all. Okay, I will just yes. Having said that, recording will take slight delay. I mean, like due to certain reasons, I'll not be able to provide the recording of this session immediately. Right? It will, but I'll try to get you as soon as possible. So I'll work with my team to see how soon they can get the yesterday's recording to you. Questions related to other tracks and other programs, we will take up in the other groups, right? WhatsApp group probably, or you can reach out to the support team. Okay. So we have seen how to install Python, how to install Visual Studio Code. Yeah, one thing to note is when we install Python, right, in the last screen, it asks, do you want me to add this to path, right? By default, I guess it is checked. It should be checked. If not, please uninstall, reinstall, and ensure to check it, right? Adding Python executable to path. Why that is required is so that you can open your terminal, irrespective of which folder you are in, you can simply type Python. Okay. Since Python has been added to path, if I say Python, it searches in my path and finds where this Python executable is. If you have installed but you forgot to check that option, adding it to the path, then you will have to, if you type Python anywhere, it will not be able to identify. You will have to explicitly go to the folder where Python is installed and invoke Python from there, right? Okay, we'll install Visual Studio Code. We have covered this yesterday, so let's quickly move ahead. Yes, we have spoken about these different modes of execution. There's interactive mode, there's a notebook mode. Okay. Now we are getting into the fundamentals of programming. People who are new to programming, please pay attention here. Program is nothing but we will have some data, we will get some data, we will have some commands, some built-in commands, some commands that we will be writing, we will process that data, we will do something with that. And that's all programming is all about. Of course, when you want to achieve some complex task, we will have to write something known as logic, complex logic. Logic is nothing but the approach you take to solve a problem, right? Let's say you have a practical problem at hand, any problem for that matter in your day-to-day life, right? You have an approach. Okay, how do I solve this problem? Same thing, you have a problem in this automation, which you're trying to solve using Python. So you plan it out. Okay, first I need to do this, then I need to do this, then I need to do this, then my problem will be solved. Right? So that we call it as logic. Right? So when you are writing, of course, the program which we have written is just like a print statement. So there's no logic is involved. But when we start solving problems, we'll see that yes, we'll have to come up with something known as logic approach. But before we get there, the data that we'll be processing as part of our programs, right? We said, yeah, we'll be getting some data, we'll be processing it, and we'll be doing something with that, right? If you take the example of yesterday's use case that I've shown, where I have connected to a router and executed some commands, right? What is the data there? The router iOS, the router operating system type, the router IP address, username, password, these are all the data. Now, when the program is getting executed, this data has to be stored somewhere, right? The data which is being processed by your program, during the program execution, the data has to be stored somewhere. It gets stored in temporary storage locations in your RAM. Inside your RAM, the data gets stored in temporary storage locations. But if it is getting stored in temporary storage locations, how do I know where my data is located? So these temporary locations are given names, are given some names, using which you will be able to access the data which is getting stored in those temporary locations, right? Those names which we give to the temporary storage locations, we call them as variables, right? Variables. The variables are nothing but temp storage locations in memory to store the data during program execution. Okay. Now, as I said, these variables, these temporary storage locations are given names, right? Those names are known as identifiers because these names help us to identify, and these are known as identifiers. Right? So going back to yesterday's problem, we have to somehow take the data which is required for me to connect to a router. So first piece of data that I need is router's IP address. Right? Now I need to pick a name to store this router's IP address. Right? Now there are two ways I do it. If you remember algebra in school, right? When we talk about variables, we call them as x, y, z, etc. Right? So I can pick some name like x is equal to 192, 168, 255, 34. Later, I'll be referring to this as x. Connect to x, do something. So I'll keep wondering whenever I see this reference to x, what is x? What is x? Right? So this is a bad practice of naming your variables. If I'm storing router's IP address, I will give a name which suggests what I'm storing. I'll call it as router underscore IP or something like that, or simply IP address. Okay. So whenever you're naming variables to store the data, we should ensure to name them with some suggestive names. Okay. So I created a variable and put some value into that. So this is your data. This is your temporary location. which is called as variable. So this is a variable. This is the value it holds at this point of time. Is this part clear? What are variables? Then, okay, I'll make it generic. I'll say device IP. Device IP, then device type. Device vendor. So I've created 3 variables and put some data. Right? Now, from program point of view, I'm doing it reverse. But from your problem solving point of view, I need to process this data. I need to take this value, take this value, take this value, and do something in my program, which means I need some storage location where this can reside when my program is executed. So I create 3 variables with suitable names based on what is the data that I'm storing. Okay. So this is the concept of variables in any programming language. Now these identifiers are nothing but these names. Device IP is an identifier. Device type is an identifier. Device vendor is an identifier. These are nothing but simply names. So variable is a combination of a name and the value. And this equality symbol says that, okay, what you see on the right side, the value, you take it and put it into this. Okay. That's the concept of identifiers and variables. Any question on this, identifiers and variables? Please share the Visual Studio link. I think I shared it above. Okay, I'll share it again. Are you going to share this Visual Word document? Yes. Okay. Now, once I have these variables, next time onwards, I can, if I want to refer to my device IP, I can refer to this, the name we want to it. So I'll say, if let's say I want to print the device IP, I'll say instead of print this, I'll say print device IP. And that is the purpose of variables. We create variables, store data in them, so that we can refer to this data by these variable names. Now, why is it done? Why can't I simply refer this? Okay. That's because currently I'm processing this particular router with the IP address 150. So the data which is stored in this device IP is 150. Suppose I'm done connecting to it and configuring it. I need to move on to the next router, which has an IP address 151. Okay. So you see, the name, the variable is, the name is not changing, but the value is changing. This name which we have given to this variable will not change, but the value in which we store this, the value which we store in this variable keeps changing. Right? Now I am processing router with IP 151, then I process it, I finish it, I move on to 152, then 153, then 154, and so on. Right? That's why we call them as variables, because the data which we store in them keeps changing, but this name remains constant. So that's why we don't use this, because these values keep changing. We don't use them directly inside our program. Rather, we use these names which do not change. If variable is not assigned value, then it is. Like in Python, we cannot have variables without assigning a value it. So simply I cannot say this. I cannot define a variable like it'll throw an error. Okay. And the very purpose of creating a variable is, if you want to store some value. Okay. At this point, let's say you don't want to store any value, don't create a variable. At a time when you want to store that value, that's when you create a variable and store data in it. So, so let's take this stdtar code. Let's create one more file. Variables.py is my first program. Okay. Device IP is equal to some value. Device type is some value. I'll print that out. So initially you will see I'm just printing stuff, breaking things, breaking these values, taking them apart, doing some joining them, right? You might be wondering what is happening, but that's how we learn the nuts and bolts of programming, right? Straight away, I mean, you're a newbie, you're learning to cycle. You won't target to clear the cycling race, right? First, you'll balance yourself, then learn how to ride without the supporting wheels. Then you'll slowly increase your speed and slowly increase your stamina, right? Then you will actually go and participate in the race. So if you're expecting me to straight away jump to switches and routers and start configuring them, then yes, I can do it, but you will be lost, right? You'll be able to do only that and nothing else. But these seemingly boring stuff that we'll be doing for the initial few hours are actually the tools which you are learning how to use. And these tools will actually help you to carry out any general tasks that you might have to do as part of your processing. Okay, so that's another thing that you need to keep in mind. So if you don't see me switching to EVNG and start working with the devices, there's a reason for that. How do I execute this? I've written a code 02 variables.py. How do I execute? I'll come to my terminal. Python. Who is this guy? Python is the executable. Using Python, I'll say execute this file. Okay, it prints whatever we ask it to print. I can ask it to print multiple stuff. Device type. You say this kind of thing. I started typing DE. It starts prompting me. Okay, do you mean this? Do you mean this? Do you mean this? This is known as IntelliSense. Intelligent. It senses intelligently what we are trying to type, and it keeps prompting us. So that's another advantage which these IDEs have. Of course, PyCharm also has this, but not the basic things like Notepad++. They will not have this kind of features. Okay. First value, second value, third value. All we have done is we just created some variables, put some data into it, and printed them out. Right? This can be as simple a program as it is that you can first write. Now, there are some rules while creating these variable names, while choosing these variable names, right? For example, I cannot have like this, right? I cannot have my variable name starting with the digits. So you see, as soon as I typed it, it just turned into red. So my IDE is cautioning, saying that this is not allowed. Still, if I choose to go ahead and then execute it, it throws an error saying, this is an invalid syntax. Syntax is the rules that you follow to write your code. Syntax is the rules that you follow to write your code. Since I have broken that rule, it is saying invalid syntax. You're not following the correct rule. The rule is I can have numbers inside anywhere. It can end with number. It can be anywhere in between. It can have underscore, but it should not be starting with a number. Okay, that is one first rule. Second thing is you cannot have this kind of symbols. Okay. So it interprets it differently because percentage has a special meaning in code. I cannot have this, I cannot have star. Okay. So only special characters that are allowed in variable names are underscores. I guess hyphen also is not allowed. Let's see. Yeah, because hyphen is interpreted as minus. I changed my name, this name, but not this. So okay, that is these are some rules, and there are some. You see, it's like when you are doing something, you reserve some things for you. It's like you are defining something, you will reserve some keywords. Like in English, we have the sentence or verb. These are all mean something in English grammar. Right? Same way, Python is a language. So for aside, and they call them as keywords. Every programming language will have some keywords which are nothing but words which are used inside your program. Same way, Python also has keywords. How we can check those keywords is at the Python prompt. We can say help keywords. So you see it has printed some bunch of words like false, none, break, class, continue, if, import, try, while, which means these words are reserved for internal usage of Python. Why I'm saying this is accidentally you should not choose these values to name your variables. For example, I cannot create a variable called rise is equal to. So you see there's a difference between this and this. As soon as I type rise, it is showing in a different color, which means it has detected that, oh, raise is a keyword. Same way pass, right? It is different. So keywords are shown in this, I don't know what color is this. Okay, a separate color. So why I'm saying this is, yeah, in case you want to name your variables with something, and you see this kind of thing, then you should understand that, oh, this is a keyword. I should not name my variables with these words. Anyway, it's when you execute your code, it is going to throw an error. Okay, there's the concept of Python variables and rules for creating variables. Yeah, hyphen is not allowed. Please plug in charger. Don't worry, it's just, I mean, it's right here. Yeah, let me do it. Yes, that's fine. This laptop shut right. Printing just one variable, but it did work. Okay, have you done this? Device is equal to these codes. Do not forget these codes. Put some value, let's say router or switch. Do exactly this, what I'm doing. Print device. Now do not put this in quotes. Of course, if you put this quotes, it will simply print the device. If I do this, say device, because once you put in strings, it'll be treated as a text, and it will print only that, like our hello world. But here, if I want to refer to this variable, I should refer it without this quotes. Now you say it will interpret, it will go try to find what is this device. Okay, device is a variable. What is the value which is stored? Router. Okay, get that value and print it. Hope it has worked now. Yes, document will be shared. Okay, we'll move on. So that's about how you can declare your variables. Right now, the data that you are trying to store in your program and process it during the execution of program is of different types, right? All this like device name, device IP address. What are these? Device underscore name, device underscore type. Or I'll just do equal to and hyphen are not the same. Equal to is assignment, hyphen is minus. Yes, we can do that because we are putting commas. Print device IP comma something else comma something else. Oh, I didn't do it. I remember copying it. Okay. Oh yeah, I think it was sent to private message. Yeah, it is. Okay. Now you see these are device IP. Like this is okay. Let's come to that IP for in a minute. Now device IP, we are calling it as router. Right? This is an English word, which means this is a text. Right? So this is text. Okay. By the way, now I'm writing this statements, right? These are like program statements. This will be interpreted by your Python interpreter. Suppose I want to add some text for myself, add some comments or notes for myself, which should not be interpreted as program statements, which should be simply ignored by Python, right? I can do it by in a special way using, I'll put a hash and then I'll type some text. This text will be by. So you see it is looking in green in a different color coding. So this text will simply be, this is like not a program statement or anything, simply some text which I added as a reference to myself. So when I execute, nothing will happen. That text. Then again, I change the name, but I'm using the. Okay, these are known as comments. Okay, we'll be coming to that again. But what I mean to say is, yeah, this router is text. This device vendor, Cisco, is also text. And we are able to say this is text because this contains alphabets. What about this? Is this text? It is text. Though it contains numbers, it is text because in mathematics, you will not have this kind of numbers, right? With 4 dots, with 3 dots in between. IP address is a special string, and it contains numbers, but it is a text. Okay. So all these are textual data, which means data which consists of text. Now this textual data has a special name in Python. The textual data is known as string of characters. Right? Actually, it is meant to be string of characters. Since it became too long, they shortened it and they simply call it as string. So when we say string, it simply means some textual data like this. Okay. So this is one type of data that we will be storing using in Python. String. Okay. String means textual data. Now there are other types, like, okay, there will be some numbers that you'll have to work with, right? Let's say you're referring to iOS version. Say 16.9 or something like that. Right? So this is a number, right? I want to treat this as a number. So I will directly mention this without putting this in quotes. If I put this in quotes, this also becomes text. But I want to treat it differently as a number. So I will not put in quotes. This becomes number now. This is number. Now there are another type of data where I want to say yes or no kind of answer. Right? Is this device from Cisco? And the answer for that would be yes, it is, because the device vendor is Cisco. So to store this kind of yes/no things in programming languages, we use a special data type called as Boolean. Right? Boolean means it can store only 2 values, either true or false. It cannot store anything else. Okay. Why we are talking about this is when we are working with data, the data comes in different forms. So we are different types. So we are just discussing those different types in which this data can come. First, it can come as text, then it can come as numbers, or it can come as, okay, whether IP is management IP or not, right? Let's say we want to say that is IP MGMT, is IP management. The answer to this would be true or false. Correct? We are defining IP here. Is this a management IP or not? Let's say you want to store that kind of data. So we'll create this kind of variable and store. If it is a management IP, we'll say true. Yes, it is. If it's not management IP, then we'll store false in this. Okay. So this is another type of textual data, number data, Boolean data. Okay. Now, in the number data, there are again 2 types. Right? Let's say number of interfaces. Can I have number of interfaces like 4.8? Doesn't make sense, right? It has to be without decimal. It has to be 4 or 16 or 50, and it cannot have decimal. These type of numbers are known as integers. These type of numbers are known as decimals or floating point numbers, or simply float. Okay? So numbers can be of two types, float or integers, shorted for int, float or int. These are text or string, shorted as or str. Str is a short form for string, float, int. So the data types that we have are str, which means textual data, int, integer data, float, decimal point data, bool, true or false kind of data. Okay, let's take this and go somewhere else. Okay. Now, you want to check what type of data it is stored. Just by looking at this device type, I don't know whether text is stored, number is stored, right? But I need this information when I am doing something else with this. I'm doing some of the processing with this information. That time I need to know what type of data is stored in it, so that I can accordingly decide something. Like for example, I want to halve the number of interfaces which are currently configured. And so I'll take this, I'll divide it with 2. Suppose it is a text. Dividing this text with 2 doesn't make sense, correct? So for such things, I need to know what is the type of data which we are dealing with. Understood? So we have a function which is handy to find what type of data is stored in variable. Accordingly, that function is named as type, because we are trying to find the type of data which is stored in a variable. We will use a built-in function called as type. Just like how we have used a built-in function called as print to print something onto this console. This is called as console to print something here. We used a built-in function called as print. Now we'll be using another built-in function. These are built-in. We call them as built-in functions because they're already provided to us by Python. Another built-in function we'll be using is called as type. So the way to use it is I'll simply say type, right? And inside this I'll put my variable name, which means find the type of this variable, find the type of data which is stored in this variable. Now this will get me the type, but it will not display because I'm not doing anything with that. So I'll have to say take this whole thing and print it. Okay. Take the variable using the built-in function type, find its type. When you find its type, use the built-in variable or built-in function print to print that data. You see, it says something like class and str. It says this variable device type, the data which is stored in this, belongs to the class of strings, okay? Which means it is textual data. Let's check the type of this. Print type this and this. Print type of this variable and this type. Print type of this type. So device type stores string or textual data. Version is storing float or decimal point data. Num interfaces is storing integer data. Keys IP management is storing Boolean data. Accordingly, I can decide what kind of operations I can perform on them. Okay, that is the concept of data types in programming language. So we have learned about identifiers, which are nothing but the names which we give to these variables. Then we learned about variables, which are nothing but these temporary locations where we store data, and then data types. Right, the data which we store in these variables can be of different types, and quickly you can check what type of data is stored in it using this built-in function called as type. Yes, all the Python files which I'm writing will be shared. That's why I'm organizing them into this numbers, so that I can share this entire package. What we have covered in first, what we have covered in second. Okay, that is data types. Let's see where we are with respect to the contents. We covered reserved keywords. We have covered comments. We are covering data types. Well, type will take only one variable. Print can take multiple variables, but type will take only one variable. You should get a kind of suggestive error. Yeah. Type takes one or three arguments. I mean, there is an additional thing that you can do, but it can. I mean, typically we are trying to find its type, so it will take that. How to make multiple variables output? I mean, if you are simply printing them out, you can use the print function to type. Print any number. But see, typically checking the type is independent, right? Because they're all of different types. So if you pass too many things, it will get confused which one to show. Checking type should be done ideally one by one. And anyway, you'll not be using this a lot, right? Initially, I mean, if you are writing the code, you will get used to. You'll remember like what type of data it is. Okay. Yeah. Now this is about, you see all these variables, I'm storing only one value, right? Device vendor, it stores one value. Version, it stores one value. Num interfaces, it stores one value. But let's say typically I'll be dealing with multiple values, right? Multiple devices. So let's say I want to store all my device types in one variable, right? Here I'm declaring something as device type. Now I want to create a variable which can store my device types, right? Which means it should store multiple values, because I have different type of devices like routers, switches, firewalls. What else? in Linux servers, etc. Right? So now I need some other data type or data structure which can store more than one value. Right? Here, this can store only one value. If I cannot put another value by putting comma and things like that. Right? So to store multiple values, we need another data type. We call that data type. We call those data types as sequence data types. Which means sequence data types are non-primitive data types. We call these as primitive data types because they can store only one value at a time. So old-fashioned. Whereas these guys, non-primitive data type, they can store multiple values at once. Okay. So there are different ways we can store this data, but the most common and most widely used is known as a list, right? Normally we say, there's a list of things that need to be done, right? There is a list of tasks lying on my plate. There is a list of things to be cleared, etc., etc. So the most common data type, that sequence data type that is used, is known as a list. And the way a list is represented is using square brackets. So in these square brackets, I'll say what all device types I can deal with. Routers, router, switch, firewall, and so on. Forget about primitive, non-primitive. So far, the problem we are trying to solve required only one value to be stored in each variable. Right? Yeah, we stored each values, we connected to that. Now, as my program grew, I have to deal with different types of devices, not only routers. I have to deal with routers, switches, firewalls, etc. Now I need a variable which can store all these values together. Right? Otherwise, I can say device type 1, router, device type 2, switch, device type 3, firewall. I don't know how many are going to be there. Right? In this case, it is only 3. But let's say there are 100 different types. I have to keep saying device type 1, device type 2, device type 3, etc., 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 device type 100. Instead, if I have a way in which I can store multiple values together, it will simplify my life. That we call it as non-primitive data type. We call the other type as primitive data type because they can store only one value at a time. For example, this router is a string which is stored in this. Only one string is stored in this. Whereas if I want to store multiple strings, it becomes a list of strings. So you see this is a list of strings. String 1, string 2, string 3. All these things together are stored in this. Right? So device types is a list of strings. Now what is its use? Whatever I can do with a single string, I can do the same thing with the list of strings as well. A simple thing being, just print it out. What is that? Okay. So it has printed my entire list. Okay. Now, what are advantages of list? What can we do with the list? We'll get it a minute. But there are a few more types, right? Collection data types, in which you can store collection of objects. Right. Now, you have let's say uh, approved vendors, right? Yeah, that will make sense when we actually go to list operations. Okay. Now, this is one example. This is a list. Like this, there are a few more, which we'll be seeing shortly, known as tuple, set, dictionary, etc., etc. Okay. But before going there, let's take a deeper look at strings and see how we can process those strings. Right? We call them as string operations. So before we go into string operations, any questions? Hope this is clear, Priya Ranjan. What do we mean by non-primitive? Non-primitive is simply these data types store more than one value. That's all. In different formats. What are those different formats? We'll see shortly. Okay. That's about data types. So strings are very, very, very versatile data types. Most of the times as part of your automation, you'll be coming across strings, and you'll have to do something or other with those strings. You'll have to process the string, you'll have to break the string, you'll have to put some strings together, you'll have to find whether the string contains something else or not. Accordingly, you do something, right? You'll be doing so many things with those strings, right? You'll be comparing strings, you'll be extracting something from a string, you'll be joining strings together, you'll be finding whether something is there in some string or not. All this would be required for you to build your logic when you are working in a large application. Imagine like you got what is that, show version or show clock information from a router. What you get? You get a textual data string. From that you want to extract, let's say, date separately, year separately, month separately, and so on. So you'll have to somehow figure out how you can break that string down, how you can extract the data. Or let's say you get clock information from somewhere and version information from somewhere. You want to put these things together and then show some data, or print some data, or store it somewhere. You'll have to join some couple of strings together. Right? So these are all known as string operations. We'll be doing certain operations on the strings, certain processing on the strings. Right? For that, let's define a simple string. Let's say device type again. Now, let's say we want to, for some reason, right? There's no reason why I would want to find the length of this, but for some reason, I want to find how many letters are there in this, right? What I'll do is I have a function, built-in function known as len. My L is not len, which is a shortened form for length. Tell me length of this guy. Of course, here I can, by looking at it, I can make out, but sometimes I'll be dealing with strings which I've never seen before. I'll be reading some string from a file which I've not seen. I don't know how long is my string. Right? So in such cases, I'll be using length function. Now I'm finding the length, right? There are two things I can do. Either I can store it in a variable. Is equal to, so you find length of this guy So what you'll get back is the length as a number that you store in some other variable, or you can simply print it out. So you can store in a variable and then print it, or you can directly print it out. It says length of your string is 6. Now, if the length of my string is 6, can I find out the position of all these characters? Now, if you have the string, the characters in the string are numbered, right? And the numbering in programming, for some strange reason, the guy who implemented this, he decided to start counting from 0 and not from 1. Okay. So the numbering in most of the programming languages, not only in Python, it starts from 0. We call this numbering as index or position, right? So string index or string positioning starts from 0. So the first character, we say this is at position 0, or its index is 0. Then this is 1, then this is 2, then this is 3, this is 4, this is 5. So for a string of length 6, the indexing starts from 0, goes all the way up to 5, 0 to 5, which is 6. Right? Now, can I get those characters which are at individual locations? I can get them. I'll say device type of 0, which means I'm saying from this string, extract the character which is at 0th position. Again, why would you want to do that? There are situations when you want to do that. For now, you will be learning how to break this string and extract different characters which are at different positions. Okay? Starting with, okay, I want to see which is the character which is at 0th position in this string. In this string, get me the character which is at 0th position. It says R. The character which is at 0th position is R, which is at first position. It is O, okay, which is at 5th position. It is again R, router, the last one. By mistake, if you think that, oh, okay, length is 6, let me check what is the 6th letter. It says string index out of range, which means my indices starting from 0 to 5, you're asking me to get the letter which is at 6th position. There is no 6th position. And typically we make this kind of mistake. If the length of the string is 6, we try to get the 6th character, thinking that, okay, I'll be getting the last one. But indexing starts from 0. So your indexing starts from 0 and stops till 6 minus 1, which is 5. Print D only. Well, okay, it won't print, it won't print this letter, right? It won't print the first letter of the variable. It will print the first letter of the value which is stored in the variable. Okay, so it will print R and not D. This for instance. Okay, this is known as string indexing. using indexing mechanism, we can extract different letters which are part of the string. Now there is also something known as negative indexing, which means, so indexing is helping you to move along the string, starting from 0 all the way up to length. Now there is something known as negative indexing, which will help you to traverse the string backwards, start from last letter and then come to first letter. So accordingly, last letter is numbered as -1. It says R. If I say -2, we'll say E. Okay. So if I have, let's say, R, O, U, E, R, outer, okay. My positive indexing is 0, 1, 2, 2, 3, 4, 5. Negative indexing is 1, +2, -3, -4, -6. More space. Okay, this is just for information purpose. If at all you have to find the last character, you instead of figuring out what is its length and then saying that length -1, you can directly tell get me the -1 character, which will directly take you to the last character. That is known as negative indexing. Okay. Now another useful operator is, so we comment this and then put the, because if I leave like this, my Python will throw an error saying I don't understand these things because these are not programming statements, and it says I don't understand this funny stuff. So if you want to have this kind of thing, you need to comment them out and give a nice name. Forward and reverse indexing. I have defined a string, I have found its length, then I have get its length, and then I have the indexing mechanism to get different elements. So let me define another variable price underscore IP. What do we call this? 192, 168, 255, 150. These are all octets, right? Octets which make up this IP. Suppose for some reason I want to extract these octets. Right? Let's say I want to figure out which subnet it is in. And by looking at this number, I can figure out its subnet, right? So I want to extract this part. Okay. So we should have a way to split this string so that I can extract this. Correct? So there's a function accordingly called as split. Right? take this string, split it. Okay. Now, in this string, how will you split the string? What to get? Let's say this 255. You see, these dots are there. So if you chop at this, if you cut at this dot, wherever dot is there, you cut. What you get? You get pieces. Like you have that sugar cane, which has those sections, right? So you cut out this, you cut at those sections to get its different pieces. Same way you have this one piece, second piece, third piece, fourth piece joined by dots. So if you want to get these parts, you cut them at the dot, right? You are saying, okay, split, where to split? At the dot, split at the dot. So wherever you see a dot, cut it and then give me those pieces. Okay, that's what we are, this function will do. Any questions here? If I want to break this string, based on some character which is present in string, I'll use my split function by specifying that character. Now, when this string is split by this dot, what I'll get? I'll get multiple values, right? I'll get 192, I'll get 168, I'll get 255, I'll get 150. So this split function has to return me not one value, but it has to return me 4 values. So what is the ideal way these 4 values or multiple values can be returned to me? We have learned in the data type section. It will return me all those values as a list, right? So when I split a string, what I get is a list. So accordingly, I'll name it as, why did it go there? Octet list. I'll store them in a variable. I'll split the string, store them in a variable called as octet list. Let me see if I got them properly by printing them out. And to minimize the output, I'm done with this, so I'll comment out these lines so that they don't interfere. You see, my IP address has been broken into 4 parts, and all those 4 parts are returned to me in a nice list by calling this function called as split. Okay. Let's say I have a string like I want to split this string. Words underscore list. String 1 dot split. Now to get the words, to get the list of words, how do I have to split this string? Using what as a split character? That will chop space, right? So how do I specify space? I'll use either single quote or double quote and hit space bar. Yeah. Okay. And then let's print. Okay. Each word is broken and it is inserted into this list, and you get this. Now, the same thing, whenever I'm splitting by space, space is considered to be the by default, it is space is treated as a splitting character. So I can, if at all I want to split a string by space, I can as well skip it. I can simply say split. By default, it will split. using space, right? So even if I do this, I get the same output, because by default, split will, wherever the spaces are there, it will split there. Okay. Yeah, that's the next problem, right? Yeah, we first broke the string and got multiple things. Now from this, we'll be able to pick one, correct? There should be some mechanism for that. And in the previous exercise, we have seen, okay, if you have a string, from this string, how you can pick one by one, using its indexing mechanism. Somewhat similar thing could be existing on lists as well, right? List indexing. So if you want to pick one, we will be able to apply indexing on the list, and we'll be able to do that. But we'll see that in a while. Yeah. Anyone from non-programming background or have not done programming, you find this a bit overwhelming, please ping me in private. If I'm going too fast, or is this fine, you're able to follow. Right now, you get that thing out of your mind, saying that I'm not from a programming background, it is going to be difficult for me, right? We are just discussing common things, right? The day-to-day problems that we would be solving, and we are not discussing anything complex as of now. Right? We started with, okay, if I want to print something, how would I do that? If I want to store some data, how would I do that? I would create variables and store it. Now, when I'm storing data, there will be different types of data. It's not always text that will be storing. So we have data types. So if I have data types, there'll be like single values which will be stored, also multiple values which will be stored. Now, once I have all this, okay, assuming that I have strings, what are the different things that I can do with these strings? Right? Being able to extract character by character, being able to break it down and extract its parts, and so on. Okay, cool. Well, real world use case. Unfortunately, at this point of time, these are the best real world examples that we can think of. Okay. Now I've split it. I want to join them back. Let's say using a different character, hyphen or slash. Let's say suddenly they changed this in IP, IP addressing scheme. They said, yeah, dot will not work anymore. You'll have to use colon. So 192:168. I'm just thinking hypothetical situation to create a scenario where you'll have to do this. Okay. So I'll have to somehow replace all these dots with colons. Of course, there are two ways doing it. There's a function directly called replace, which we'll be seeing. But suppose I have broken it. I've broken it using this dot. Now I have a list. I want to join them back. Okay? I have a join function. Now, while joining, I have a function called as join. Join what? These are my pieces. Join these pieces. Now, how to join this? Using something. Using colon. Using colon, you join the pieces which you broke. Store it in a new IP. Then let's see if we have the new IP. Okay. It prints like this, 192:168. So whichever character you give, that will be used to join all these pieces. It says 192 slash. If I take out slash and put hyphen, it will. Okay. So you have learned split, join. Now there are so many functions. I mean, I'm just giving you examples. We'll not be able to cover all the functions, all the string functions that are available there. But I'm showing you few so that you can go to any of the websites and then check what are the string functions that you have, what are all different functions are there, and then start trying out one by one as part of your hands-on, right? Most of you will be asking, okay, sir, give us some exercises. These are the, I mean, you can create these exercises for yourself. Best way is take a string, go to any website which talks about Python data types. And then since you know now what are functions and how functions work, start calling those functions. Just read a brief description about it and then start executing using those functions. Right? Now I said, yeah, I want to, my ultimate objective is to replace this dot with something else. I can do it in multiple ways. One way is break it, split it using dot, and then join them using other character. The other way is that there's a direct function which will say, I'll take this device IP. In this device IP dot replace. Replace what? Dot. With what? Colon. Now I think this will modify the original string. The modifying this back. Okay, it is ulta. Oh, okay, sorry. This is device IP. A lot of things are happening like these guys. Okay, that's fine. Okay, it doesn't. Maybe it returns another string. This is a string. That's the thing, I don't remember these things whenever I want to just record. That's what I've done. But it returns a new string. Text.replace. Replace this with this, which returns a new string. That's what we are trying to do. Will this be done independent of the vendor type? What do you mean by vendor type? Yes, I mean, see, we are doing plain text processing. So whichever device you are dealing with, the device will have some logs or it's textual information which you would want to extract and process it and extract some data out of it. So it doesn't matter if that's what is the device vendor type you are referring to, or is it something else? Okay, device IP is my string. I'm calling replace dot. Replace dot. Yeah. So this is one way. This is first way of replacing. This is the second way of replacing. This is much more clean and intuitive, right? Take the string, in the string, find dot, wherever you see dot, replace it with colon. So like this in Python, you will see that there are different multiple ways of achieving something, right? So how do you remember all these things? It comes with practice. You don't really have to remember all these things. As I said, like whenever you need help, just get onto internet and see how to use a function. But what the thing is, what you should know is, how to interpret that text. For example, here it is given example. Okay, text is the string which I've defined. On that, I'll call replace function. I'm replacing something with something else, which gives me out a new string, right? Which is what I need to print. Yeah. Okay. Are there any most commonly used? Hope most of you have set up your Visual Studio Code and Python and started doing along with me. If not already done, I'll just leave few lines, like maybe I'll ask them to send in a group, like what you can do today after going back. Okay, joining back a string we have seen how to split, we have seen how to join them back. We have seen there's something known as slicing operator. These are all the string methods. No, there are a lot. There are a lot many. You can change case, like you can convert something into uppercase using upper function. There's a function called lower, using which you can convert it into lower function. Then there's a method like starts with. You can check whether some word, some sentence starts with something. You can check whether something is in something. So there are so many things. Now this is my string, right? Python is ideal for network automation. We want to check whether the string one contains network or not, right? So it's a print network in string one. It says true. So this is not exactly a function. This is known as operator, membership operator. Using this in operator, we can check membership of this in this, presence of this word in this, right? And you can check whether this string is starting with Python, right? So we'll say print str1 dot starts with. Is it starts with or starts with? Check. Yeah. Good. It's a false. No, it doesn't start with Python. It starts with Python. Like this, there are so many. Best thing, as I said, is get onto this. This is the best site, but unfortunately, these guys will talk about bananas, apples, whereas you expect him to talk W3 schools, right? This is like the beginning place. You can really start with the basics. But as I said, this guy is not a networking guy, so all you say is apples, bananas, cars, fruits, etc. So if you can bear with him, this is like a very good place to start. Python strings. These are the operations you can do. Strings or arrays. String length. For an operation, string methods. Capitalize. Convert the first character into uppercase. Case fold. Convert string into lowercase. Fold all the cases. Center. Right. Pad the string and pad the string with something and move the word to center. It is like justifying. In Word, you have left just, right just, center justification. It's like that. Count. Count the presence of something. You're saying this link. You just type Python string methods. This is the first this thing that you will get. Yeah. Okay. We are seeing this split. You can check out what is strip. Okay. So that is a few. Okay, then we will stop here. If any more questions are there, we can take in the next few minutes. If not, I'll leave a few notes. Yes, so far, whatever slides we have covered, I'll share them with you. And I'll also try to share the lab environment.
Recording stopped.